Good morning, everyone. My name is Tamon Hamlet. I'm the creator of Retake the House GOP. We're doing another interview today, and this time it's with a special Kat Cammack, who is running for Congress in Florida 03. So we'll just give it a few seconds to start here, and a few seconds for them to join. All right. Just wait a couple minutes and try to pin this comment here. It's not loading. All right.
Hey.
Hi. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you
Hey,
so
good morning.
Thank you so much for joining me. I'm very grateful to be able to interview you here. Okay.
Yeah,
So
no problem. Thank you so much for having me.
my pleasure. So why don't we introduce ourselves? My name is Tamon Hamlet. I'm the creator of this account, where all I do is focus on GOP races across the nation. I am a conservative grassroots activist here in Houston, Texas, and I am a college sophomore at University of Houston. And why
Awesome.
don't you introduce yourself and tell people what race you're running in?
Sure. So my name is Kat Cammack, and I am the Republican nominee for Florida's 3rd Congressional District. And we are in North Central Florida, which is the Gainesville area, Ocala, Orange Park, Fleming Island, basically sandwiched between Orlando and Jacksonville. So the best part of Florida is what we like to say. But I'm so excited to be with you here. And of course, there's always friendly rivalry between Texas and Florida. So excited for the conversation today. And thank you so much for putting this account together. This is awesome.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Yeah, I've covered you in the past, and you're one of the someone that I supported before the primary. I thought you were a terrific candidate, and yeah, Florida is a really great state. I've been there a few times. I don't know if I would live there, but it's a great place to you want to spend a vacation, maybe a few weeks in.
During the
But
winter, not the summer.
yeah, I learned that the hard way. I went to Disney World, and it was in June, and
Oh.
every single day it would rain. Every single day in the dead of summer. And I was so confused. I didn't know what was going on.
And the summer is brutal. And if you're at Disney or Universal, that black pavement, it just radiates that heat.
Oh yeah.
And that's tough. So kudos to you for sticking it out. But yeah, we get our
Well, you live
afternoon
and learn. You live and learn.
transition. I love
Well,
that.
why don't we get into some questions? For those who don't know who you are, why don't you give a rundown on who you are, what your experience is, and what you've accomplished in the past.
Sure. So, as I said, I'm now the Republican nominee for Florida's 3rd district. But prior to being the Republican nominee, I was Congressman Yoho's longtime deputy chief of staff and campaign manager, as well as a small business owner. My husband and I have a nonprofit organization called the Grit Foundation, and it exists to support fire and police departments with any critical life-saving equipment or training that they need. And so we've got a couple of small businesses. We have the foundation. And prior to that, I actually grew up out west, and was helping out in our family business, which was commercial sandblasting, and grew up on a small cattle ranch out there. It wasn't until 2011 that I was really actively involved in the process. In April of 2011, we actually got the devastating news that we were losing our cattle ranch, our home, due to an Obama era program. And it was one of the big government housing initiatives, this one size fits all approach that ended up costing taxpayers an incredible amount of money, but pushing 7 million people out of their homes. And we were forced to evict, and we had 23 days to do so. We spent the next several months homeless and living in an extended stay hotel. And that's when I really got motivated to get involved and be a part of the process, because I really at that point had at just, I think I was 22 when this happened. In my 22 years on Earth, I had seen more big government interference than I could put up with. And so I changed my whole life plan and decided to get involved in politics. And a family friend of mine said, you know, my uncle's running for Congress in Florida. I think you'd be a good fit. And we got connected, and I made the journey to Florida, showed up, and became a part of the team. And after that, went on to join the official office and the congressional staff side. So
Wow.
that was really my motivation for getting involved, was this personal experience, because, you know, watching government come after your family business for decades, and really seeing how it doesn't work, how government doesn't facilitate or create an environment that's conducive to allowing businesses to thrive. That was hard. But then really that tipping point was when we lost our home and
Yeah,
became
that
homeless.
must be
So,
very scary.
yeah.
Especially, you know, nowadays, you know, you have the coronavirus crisis, and, you know, government is forcing businesses to stay shut. You know, my grandmother owns a restaurant up in Baltimore, Maryland, and, you know, they have guidelines where restaurants can't even open yet. And it's taken a toll on our family, and it's scary because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
No, I think that's actually covers one of my next question. What inspired you to make a change in your community? Um, let me ask you: do you think your experience will prepare you for a career in Congress? Because, you know, you don't see a lot of. I'll just let you answer. Sorry.
No, no. I mean, it's a great question. Um, I think it
Yeah.
does.
Well, I
Um,
mean, I was going to say, you know, you don't see a lot of small business owners, you know, getting into Congress or getting into the legislator. And I think, you know, especially with this crisis, we could use more people who, you know, understand the impact of their policies, you know, because, you know, the rich politicians, they're not going to feel the blunt impact of their decisions. It's going to be the small families. So do you think that your experience will affect you?
Absolutely. You know, I think having that a third generation commercial sandblaster, I've seen um, really years and years of evolution of government growing and how things have changed, whether the tax structure or the regulatory environment, or even down to estate planning, how a family business can transition from one generation to the next. And so that will be tremendously helpful. But I think, particularly now when we're in the middle of COVID and we're trying to formulate a government response that is not going to saddle future generations with trillions of dollars of debt, but also support, you know, and meet the needs short term of small businesses that have been forced to shut down. And I think women have been disproportionately hit because so many of the industries that have been forced to shut down, hospitality, the restaurant industry, services, nail salons, hair salons, you know, these are traditionally women-owned businesses. So they're being disproportionately hit in this COVID-19 debacle that we're seeing. And so I think having that insight of coming from not just watching my mom run a business, you know, multi-generation, small family business, but then myself being a business owner, really navigating the government programs that have been out there, that is going to be a huge help. But having experience as a congressional staffer is preparing me for really being able to hit the ground running on day one. And that was one of the things that we talked about in was it takes quite a massive learning curve when you get to Washington. It's not just how do you navigate the halls of DC. It is learning the process, learning the legislative process, learning how to effectively conduct constituent services and outreach, putting multiple congressional offices together. You have political side, you have policy side. You have to navigate your committee work and all the players. You have multiple industries that are constantly knocking on your door looking for support, and having that experience of knowing what to expect on day one, that is going to help us, like I said, not only hit the ground running on day one, but we're going to be effective day one because we know what truly matters, what doesn't. And so we're really excited about that opportunity to serve not just our district, but I think be a voice for millennials and women across the country.
That's great. That's great. That actually touches on the last two questions I was going to ask. So you were a staffer for Congressman Ted Yoho, and Mr. Yoho is retiring. Please send our thanks for all his continued service to Florida and the nation. So it's a pretty safe red district. With that in mind, sorry, I completely blanked out. I apologize. So with that in mind, you must have had some thought on policies. And I think in today's political culture, we focus more on partisan attacks and political theater rather than the laws that affect our day-to-day life. So let's talk about policy. If elected to Congress, what would be your top legislative priorities in order to represent your constituents and Florida?
So I campaigned on an America First platform, which is everything from bringing manufacturing back home, really supporting American industry enterprise, and that can include a number of things, such as locking in low tax rates, really giving certainty to the business environment so they can invest and plan long term. But I think we need to address the elephant in the room. We're seeing this major slide happening towards social and all the things that our government is doing, spending us into unsustainable debt, wrapping up a spending habit that is truly, it really is just not sustainable, and we'll be forced into austerity measures if we don't get a handle on it. Addressing mandatory spending, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, those are the major drivers of our debt. And if the Fed were to increase rates even 0.25%, interest on debt alone would make up discretionary, and government as we know it would cease to exist and function. And people don't want to work their whole lives just to pay off the debt that has been racked up by poor decision making that has been, done in Washington. So really being a voice of reason, a pragmatic voice for millennials is the goal legislatively. I want to make sure that we are shoring up our critical supply chains. We saw how fragile they were, especially when COVID hit in March. Really, that's when everything freaked out.
I mean, I used to work in a restaurant before I became a campaign staffer. I used to work at a restaurant in Shake Shack, and they hit us so hard we ran out of to-go boxes because everything had to be to-go, and we ran out of food, so we couldn't sell all the items on our menu, and it was they had to cut our hours, and it was difficult. It was difficult.
Absolutely. And so, and we're seeing that everywhere around the country. People, I think we have done a disservice. People just kind of think that food shows up at the grocery store. They don't realize the process that it went through to go from, the fields and then to the packers, to the processors, to get on a truck that then delivers it to, they don't realize all the steps that are involved. And so when we shut down our economy, we really shut down everything. And there was such assault for the last 20, 30 years on our agricultural producers. Our farmers and ranchers have been really struggling for several decades under government interference and rules and regulations. And we saw just how dangerously close we saw to not being able to produce a food supply for our country. We had dairy farmers in fields. We had farmers here in Florida that were disking up crops in the field because the supply chains were so broken that we couldn't get product to stores. The stores were putting artificial limits on things because they make sure that everyone could get something. But as we saw across the country, shelves were empty. So there's some real work that we have to do if we're going to really focus on national security. And one of the things that I studied at length when I was at the War College was our domestic policies here at home and how we need to have a resilient infrastructure, whether it is our electric grid, whether it is our supply chains, our manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. There's a number of things that we have to work on before we can say with confidence that we are truly a secure nation. So I'm excited tackling those issues. And then of course here at home, my district, rural broadband is a huge issue. COVID highlighted perfectly the need for access to high-speed internet. So whether healthcare, whether education or commerce, we have to have access. And coming from a rural district, that is something that is so desperately needed. And we're going to be taking on that fight come January. And we're going to be implementing a task force that is really a collective of stakeholders to deliver the infrastructure necessary so that every constituent has access to high-speed internet.
Wow, that's exciting. Yeah, I live in the city here in Houston, so that would have never crossed my mind. It's always great to hear about local issues such as that. It gives people an opportunity to learn a perspective that they never even think about. So I wanted to ask you one final question here. So I mentioned I'm a grassroots activist here in Houston.
I love that.
Yes, I try to dedicate a lot of my time in the political field. And one thing that I hear from my female counterparts is how hard it is to actually make a career in politics. And as a guy, I don't know anything about that, and I have no idea what to say. And it just sucks to hear people. I have friends who are actually discouraged from getting into politics because how hard it is to they say it is to be a woman and entering the field. So you have some experience with being a congressional staffer. What advice do you have for young women who are hoping to make a career out of politics?
I think that we absolutely need more women, more diversity in the Republican Party, in the conservative movement. But I always try to stress is that I never got on the campaign trail and said, vote for me because I'm a woman. It was always vote for me because I'm the best person for the job, not because I check a box. And I think any woman, anyone who is a minority, I feel like they have the same sense of they have the experience, the intelligence, the know-how, really be the most effective person for that job. And when you approach it from that standpoint, it those cards away and you're looked at as an equal. And my advice to young women getting into politics is don't play the woman card. People know that you're a woman when you walk in the room. They'll pick up on that. What you need to win over with is your intelligence and your grit, your determination, and the fact that you are the most prepared person in that room. And that is how you're going to be successful. Don't let people discourage you. I can't tell you how many people I spoke to that said, well, don't you think you should be focusing on your family? And, when are you going to have kids? And, you just have to take that with a grain of salt and understand that that is a very small mindset that they have. And you can't let people influence you in that way. So my advice would be stay very focused, know why you're running, know why you're getting involved. I know every day I wake up and I think our ranch, and I can remember the view of looking out our back porch And we had our pastors. I could tell you exactly where, you know, I buried our dogs on the property. I know it's probably a little dark, but you know, I think back to those moments and it just kind of centers me, and I remember why I chose to get involved. And that's really what motivates me every day. So know your why. Never let someone tell you that you can't do something because you're a woman. But always, always be the most prepared person in the room. And never ever fall back into the trap that the left so desperately tries to push us into of, you know, you're just here because you check a box. You should be the person there because you're the best person for the job. And that is where we need to be pushing the message from here on out. So it can be hard, it can be discouraging sometimes, but just brush them off your shoulder and keep trucking, keep moving forward. Because
Well,
we
that's
need,
great. That's great. Yeah. Well, I mean, I was just going to say, you're absolutely right in terms of diversity within the GOP. You know, because I run this account and I look at all these races and you see, you know, far more diverse spectrum than you did in 2018.
yeah.
I can't remember the exact number. I believe it was over 200 women were running for Congress before the primaries back in January.
Hmm.
And that's honestly inspiring. You know, I'm glad to see more people like yourself, also young conservatives, speaking out because that's what we need to push the message on to the next generation.
Exactly. Exactly. And I feel like there's so much more that unites us than divides us. And we can really make progress on the bipartisanly and really cut across political divides, racial divides, gender lines. I mean, there's so many things that I talk to people all the time. And I say, you know, at the end of the day, this is what we want to do. And they say, oh, you know, us too. How we get there is very different. But if we can agree on the end game that we all want a better country for our kids, for us now, want a safe country that respects the rule of law and gives people the opportunity, you know, equal opportunity, not equal outcome, I think we're going to see so much more progress being made on some of these issues like this for so long.
That's great. That's great. And well, that's all I have for you today. Again, thank you so much for coming on, and I loved talking to you.
Like, thank you so much for running this account. Awesome. I love.
My pleasure. Well, I wish you the best of luck in your race, and I hope to see you in Washington sometime. And I hope you have a very great morning.
All right. Well, I appreciate you more than you know, and we'd love to come back. So keep up the great work.
Wonderful. All right. Have a good night. Have a good day. Bye.
Bye.
All right, everyone. That was Kat Cammack. She's running for Congress down in Florida's 3rd Congressional District. If you're in the district, please support her. Volunteer if you can. Visit her website. Donate if you can. She's definitely going to be a powerhouse in Congress. So thank you all for tuning in. Have a wonderful day. And as always, thank you for politicking.